Busy day today?
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
That's good. Did you get a workout in today?
Uh, does shoveling snow count?
Absolutely. That
Then
is
I
a
gotta work
workout.
it out in
This,
45 minutes
woo!
on the shovel.
Oh yeah, you can get a backache if you don't stretch on that one.
Yeah, totally. Worked out my arms.
Good, good. Glad to hear.
Yeah.
Um, how's the day been otherwise? Has it been good?
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, great
Good.
actually. How about you?
You know what? It's been busy. I don't know. It's one of those days where you're trying to catch up to everything and you're holding on, but
Mhm.
it'll get through. We'll get through
Yeah.
this. Thanks for joining us on today's podcast. I'm excited to have you. This is
Well,
exciting.
I'm so grateful to be here,
Oh,
Zach. Yeah, thank you.
yeah. Vanisha, to get started, I know you sent me the bio, but for the listeners, what exactly have you done in your life and what are you currently doing, which is exciting, but for the listeners, what is it?
So I founded Terminator Foundation. So that's pretty much what I do full
Mhm.
time. And then I also I do coaching and consulting as well, for groups or individuals, and speaking. I do a little writing. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, where did you come up with the name Terminator? Because I love it.
Thanks. Well, driving one day to the grocery store, and I needed a name because we just all we were really calling it was like the youth addiction
Yeah.
awareness stuff, right? And I'm like, it can't be calling it that.
Hmm.
And so I heard it on the radio one day. They were talking about the next Terminator movie, and when in life, like you just you have those moments where you hear something, and you may have heard it a million times before, you know what I mean, but you hear it, and it's like it comes alive inside of you. And that was hearing that day, Terminator came alive inside of me, and it felt like in that moment it just encompassed everything that I felt about the foundation, everything I felt about Terminator Foundation.
For sure.
It encompassed it all.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got the name.
Well, and it's such a powerful name as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, hasta la vista, baby, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
now, what exactly does the foundation do? So obviously, youth awareness and on drugs primarily. Is that what it is? And recovery?
yeah, it's we're like we are we're our it's a recovery platform. Um, and so my elevator speech is it's a program for individuals that are struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, and we use the sport of triathlon. We use athletics as a vehicle, as a therapeutic modality to help strengthen their recovery, help bridge,
Hmm.
into recovery, or if they've been relapsed, or struggling or anything like that, just to strengthen their overall recovery, like just to be a part of that journey with them.
What is the age you're seeing, or the youngest age you're seeing of individuals coming into programs or seeking out a program? What's an early age?
Well, truthfully, we just received an application not that long ago for a 14-year-old. So 14 all the way up to 44 we've
Wow.
had. Mhm.
I mean, think about when I was younger, at 14 or 15 or 16, you can hang out with wrong crowds or you can end up in places you shouldn't be. How is it usually the 14-year-old that says, "Hey, I'm not where I want to be in life. This is not the right decisions," or is it a guardian that says, "You need to go to a program"?
I honestly, Zach, I think nowadays, I think it has really escalated,
Hmm.
and our our 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year olds are really struggling.
Yeah.
It's I would call it a crisis. It's been a crisis for a while, but and then COVID has just sort of heightened that. I think that, I mean, where Terminator comes in as, I mean, we are at the same time, we are all about intervention and prevention. And so, you know, I think in the coming times, we are going to see more 14, 15, and 16-year-olds entering the program just because of where we're at today,
For sure. Do you
the
do you think
pressure.
it's when we look at the pandemic, and it's obviously amplified a lot of things emotionally, mentally for all
Mhm,
ages.
mhm.
What is it that the youth or what's happening to the youth through the pandemic? Is it because, again, they're not with their friends, they're cooked up at home, virtual learning? What, what is it about that's causing them to end up where they're ending up lately?
I think, like, I think the isolation, right? We're not able to connect, right? Like just totally just what COVID has done,
Yeah.
right? You can't see people. We've been restricted from seeing people. We've been restricted from touching. We've
Yeah.
been restricted from connecting. We've been shut down, been locked up. We've been shut down. We've been mandated. We've been
Hmm.
held back. It's not natural.
Yeah. Even
You
the
know, it's,
emotions, right? When you wear a mask, you
yeah,
can't see
no, you
what
can't, we
other.
can't even,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, you're not supposed to touch. You're supposed to, even your own family. You know what I mean? Like, so I think it's, we're going to be seeing the fallout from this for years and years to come.
Mhm. I do I do worry about the future, and I'm sure there will be studies saying what
Hmm.
what just happened here, because it's not okay now. The restrictions are lifted or mandates are gone.
Hmm.
Everything's back to normal because I think there's a psychological damage done here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
just on the adolescents, but I think adults as well.
Yeah. 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 I would agree.
Hmm.
100%.
Hmm.
Yeah.
When you look at children ending up into these programs, is it usually marijuana that's the gateway, or cannabis that's the gateway?
I mean, I think a lot of times it's, you know, marijuana is sort of looked at as like the lesser of all the evils. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
It's the, and especially now with it being legalized and things
Right.
like that, it's, well, it can't be that bad. It's legal, right?
Yeah.
And so I think with our kids, and I think with this generation, I think it it's a non-threatening. It comes across like a very non-threatening um, vice, you
Mhm.
know. And but is it the gateway? You know, a lot of people would argue that trauma is the gateway.
Yeah.
You know, that pain's the gateway. Disconnection is the gateway. I think, you know, I think for people in general, not even just our kids and our youth and stuff like that, I think, you know, we just, you know, there's anxiety, there's social anxiety, there's all the stuff that we feel as just humans. And if we haven't learned to talk about our emotions, or how to even just to know it's okay to feel these emotions, to feel this way, to learn to express ourselves, and to learn how to just, how do I even manage just being human? You know what I mean? Without feeling like I need to, I don't like how it makes me feel, or you know what I mean? And stuff like that. And then, you know, we get out into the world, and, you know, we get hurt, we get abused, we get knocked down, we get bullied, we get a little trampled on. And this starts as soon as we start connecting with other humans, right? And then, you know, because our kids nowadays too, at a younger and younger ages, are experimenting with things that make them feel better, whether that's marijuana, because it's very accessible. It's not as freaky of a drug to
Mm-hmm.
try, you know. And so I think when our kids try that, I mean, it takes the pressure off, and so I think it just is an almost like a natural wow, like it's like, oh wow, this actually feels better. It's like people that have a drink after work to take the edge off. Why do we do that? Because we've got this edge, and the only way we've learned how to take this edge off is by knocking back a couple of drinks.
Is that a social norm or a cultural thing, or is it, I don't know, because you can unlearn that habit and unfuck yourself on that habit because I
Yeah,
was there, right?
yeah,
It's
me too. Yeah,
it's almost, yeah, it's almost 500 days for me, and it's been nice. I
awesome.
there's peace. Yeah,
Yeah,
you still have to deal with life's problems, but
yeah, yeah,
you got to figure it out and instead of running away.
yeah. Yes, and I think I think, like, honestly, I think that's exactly, these are exactly the conversations that we need to be having
Hmm.
with all our people. You know what I mean? Whatever my circle is, whatever your circle is, whatever, Joe across the street, his circle is, like, we all need to enter in this conversation, because you're absolutely right. Like, I've been sober a long time now too, and I think it's one of the most badass things I've ever freaking done with my life, because I show up every day sober. If I'm on edge, I've had to figure out how to relieve the edge without alcohol,
Hmm.
without any substance use or abuse, you know what I mean? Or even other forms of unhealthy habits, where I'm just like, no, you're figure out what the edge is and deal with it.
Yeah.
Figure out what the anxiety is and deal with it. Talk about it. Do, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
do the
instead of saying
work.
let's go grab a beer. Oh, it's been one
Yeah.
of those days. Let's grab a beer. But you know what? Good day or bad day, let's go grab a beer, right? It was always around. You could always have a drink.
Yeah. I thought I celebrated, like, I could, like, if I got all my laundry done, I would have a glass of wine and
Oh
celebrate
yeah.
that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I found any reason to drink. Like, it got to the point where I didn't even, I'm alive. I'm drinking today. Like, it
Exactly.
wasn't
Yeah.
even, you
Shit didn't
know,
happen. Let's just drink.
totally. Yeah.
Until you did drink.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you start, I mean, not for everybody. Some people can enjoy alcohol, but for me,
Mhm.
it got you into some dark thoughts and paths. And
Me too.
I mean, and the regrets of what you say sometimes or do or your actions. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to keep apologizing for certain things. It's not worth it,
Mhm.
and that's
No.
kind of comes with the peace that you
Hmm.
find. And I think you start building on your self-esteem. That's another thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think, what else is so beautiful too is, I think you start it, if you do really put in the work and the effort, you start to, discover things about yourself that you you never thought possible, or you never
Yeah.
imagined were there. Like, you become this full human, and you learn to embrace the whole human experience of being human and having all those emotions, and you're just the spiritual component, and like all of it. It's just, you're
100%. It got
fully
really
alive,
exactly, and it got really bad for me. And when I finally stopped, I said, "Holy smokes, I can start feeling my face again." And you can smile and you're like, "Oh, that's a interesting feeling." Your hands, you can touch. You become so numb to a lot of things, and
Mhm,
and then it's a vicious circle, right? And that
mhm,
cycle doesn't
mhm.
stop unless you stop. And that habit's hard because you could say, "Oh, I'm not going to drink tomorrow," but you would do it the next day. It's just
Yeah,
happening. And
yeah,
I hope people can feel the peace that we are feeling,
Me
Sure,
too.
the world has its problems. We have our problems, but on that surface, we can take care of ourselves, right? There's some
Hmm.
sort of stability there.
Hmm.
Yeah. Our
Hmm.
emotions are not like a roller coaster anymore. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
How many years has
absolutely.
it been for you that you've been sober?
It'll be 9 years this spring.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been honestly, I'm so grateful for my sobriety. Like it's been the best thing that's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. Yeah.
What made you say, I need to get sober in my life and change it? Because it's not over, weeks or months of that decision. It was, you had to go. It's like, I need to do this for me.
Mhm. Well, it's it's sort of a two-part answer. Like because I grew up in an alcoholic home
Here in
and
Calgary? In Calgary?
um way up north. I
Oh,
actually grew up way up north.
nice.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Kamloops, BC, but then I grew up in Fort St. John and Dawson Creek,
Oh, wow.
BC.
Okay. So that's all you do is drink up there.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Work hard and drink, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so, like by the time I was 18,
Hmm.
um, I went into AA for the first time. And so, and I actually they almost kicked me out of AA back then because I mean, this is a lot of years ago now. And it was unheard of to be 18 and an alcoholic. It was like what the hell are you doing here? What do you know
What
about?
what happened? Yeah.
Well, then someone stood up for me.
Yeah, that's good.
So an old timer,
Yeah.
because everyone was like, get out of here, kid.
Yeah.
Like, and this old timer stood up for me and basically just, he said, I vote she stays. And he slammed his hand down on the table and he's like, so she stays. And I stayed. And then I stayed sober for years. I was sober for years. And it saved my life,
If
you
he
know.
hadn't done that, and if he hadn't,
Oh,
would he have gone back out?
probably because there was nothing else.
There's no
You know what I
support
mean?
system.
There was no other, you didn't even talk about this stuff back then. You know what I mean? So it was like if you couldn't get into the rooms of AA,
Hmm.
you're dead. And honestly, my drinking, like I was full blown alcoholic at that time.
Was it
We just didn't
evenings? Were
talk
you
about
binge?
it
Were
like
you binge
this.
drinking, or was it just?
Binge. And then I was, it was getting to the point where if I could drink every day, I would, you know, it was like beer and stuff back then.
Hmm.
Because I could order it to my apartment in the cab and he wouldn't question my ID,
Yeah, I love it.
right? So, and then I had an older boyfriend at the time that could get alcohol,
Oh, nice.
yeah, yeah. So it's
So
great.
the older gentleman kept you in the program or gave you that window of
Yeah.
opportunity, and I think those are those little guardian angels that we have.
Yes. And I've had a few of those in my
Hmm.
life, and they have literally, they have, they've been like divine intervention
Yes.
for me, that these were pivotal moments in my life where it literally changed the trajectory of my life. And I went in a totally different direction because of them. And that was that one of those experiences. And then, I get into life and I get married and I'm having kids and I dealt with all my childhood, you know,
Trauma.
trauma and things like that. And so I got to a place in my life, long story short, where I just thought, I'm normal. I'm normal.
Hmm.
And, because everybody wants to be normal, and I thought, well, maybe I'm not really an alcoholic. Like maybe I just drank like that because of how I grew
You're
up.
and
And
you're young
I
and
was young, I'm like, maybe, maybe I can be like a normal social drinker now. And so, and
so
I
how
was,
many years were you sober till that point?
I think like seven or
Wow.
so.
Okay.
Yeah. So like quite a while,
Yeah.
like for being a young person back then.
Especially 18
And
years. I mean, when you're that young, those are the drinking years. So that's
well,
pretty
totally. Yeah. But I
impressive.
mean, I started my drinking at 12. So
Oh,
I'd
so
had a lot of drinking years. I was, I was a pro by
yeah,
the
you
time
you
I
had the
hit
head start.
18.
Yeah,
I had a head start.
that's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And then, I was sort of, I guess you could say, socially drinking.
Hmm.
I would only have like maybe a glass of wine once or twice a year. And I thought, wow, I'm normal. I'm not really an alcoholic. Holy smokes, look at me go.
Mhm.
And then trauma hit again. My marriage collapsed, and it was unbelievably traumatizing. And then I started having a glass of wine every night after the kids were in bed to take the edge off, to help cope with the trauma. And literally, it was like a tsunami had hit our home, my marriage. It was ugly.
And it was just a
And
glass of wine?
yeah, and I honestly, Zach, I would have, I mean, okay, I'll be told it was like a goblet. But it qualified as a glass.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and it was, so I would have my goblet of wine every night, and then pretty soon one, because you build up a tolerance, and one glass wasn't enough to, have that soft, warm blanket feel, right? And and then it was two glasses before I knew it. I was drinking a bottle of wine every day, and I justified it, I minimized it, yeah. And then it took me to the very edge of my life. Because I drank for years then, and to the point where, and then I tried to quit on my own, secretively, lots of times, and I never could. I'd always end up relapsing. And finally got to the point one night I was going to kill myself.
Hmm.
And then I had a divine intervention, like a spiritual encounter, um, with God. And I ended up went back to an AA meeting because I didn't know where else to go, because you still weren't talking about this stuff publicly, really. You know what I
Isn't that
mean?
odd that we weren't?
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. Yeah. And
And
that's why I'm
now,
so loud and outspoken now, because that silence just about killed me. Yes, the drinking was killing me, but it was the silence, the shame of the fact that I was struggling with this alcohol. Like, I should know better. You know what I mean? I should, you know, be stronger. I should have better self-will. I should have, and it has nothing to do with
yeah,
that. You know what I mean?
it's a
And so,
disease.
yeah, yeah. And then I've been sober ever since. So yeah, it's all changed for me now too. Like, this whole recovery and this whole recovery movement and being sober, and living your recovery out loud, and really, embracing our stories, all of it, even the ugly, messy stuff. Like, I really have learned to just embrace it all, even what happened in my marriage and the fallout and all the stuff that happened with that, and my own kids, and where I really put the stake in the ground and got, like, righteously angry and
Mhm.
loud was when my second oldest daughter, Eden, started to struggle with drugs. And because it was one thing for me to be, an alcoholic and stuff like that, and feel ashamed about that, or that I was somehow less worthy, and things like that. But when I started to see my daughter, my beautiful girl, my, smart and funny and the most caring and compassionate person I've ever known in my entire life, when I started to see her go down that road, and the shame, the ridicule, the judgment, that's when everything shifted for me, when it comes to this sober movement, and where I really got loud, because I was like, I'll be fucking damned if people start putting her in that place of judgment and ridicule, and that she's less of a human. And so that shifted everything for me. And that's when I really started to get bold and just really come out and fight
But
fight for this.
people get worried because they're afraid of judgment. They're afraid, oh my God, if I'm open, well, will I get a job?
Yeah,
Will that same social circle be around anymore? I mean,
yeah.
I bet you when you got sober, your friends left, or some of them have disappeared.
Well, I lost some. Yeah, but then some of them too, because you know what this is like we find people, like we hang out with people that birds of a feather flock together,
Misery
right?
likes company.
Misery likes company. And I drank with a couple of people that drank like me, you know what I mean? So that I wouldn't be, like, holy Vanisha, maybe you should slow down. Like, I didn't want the light shone on me, you know what I mean? So I drank with people that they wouldn't have noticed because they drank the same,
In tough
so.
times now, do you still resort to the thoughts of, oh my God, should I go grab a drink? Or
Mm-mm,
you know better
no,
now? Yeah.
it's so done for me.
Yeah.
Like, that door is closed.
That's
There's just
beautiful.
there's no desire. There's no, like, even in some of my darkest times in these last, like, almost 9 years of being sober. And because the addiction with my daughter got really bad. She ended up
Yeah.
on the street. She was homeless. She was addicted to heroin, fentanyl. Like, it was ugly as hell,
And how old would she have been at this time?
scary as hell. She was, so Eden started using marijuana at about 13, 14. And then she ended up on the streets at like 17, 18, 19. Yeah. Like, I thought for sure I was going to be burying her. Thought for sure she overdosed many times. It was hell. It was
Hmm.
hell.
You know,
And so,
do you get
and
that?
even all that time, I didn't want to go back drinking. It was like, it's just done for me. It's,
Okay. Well, when you face those traumatic moments and those extreme pressures in your own life,
mhm.
you're really done if you're not even thinking about that stuff anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it can get you, right? So we always have to keep.
Well, and that's why, like, and this is even the work that we do with Terminator. And this is, I'm always telling our athletes, because we call them athletes, and
Well, they are.
that
I mean,
they are athletes. As soon as they sign on that dotted line, they're athletes. They're no longer wear those labels of junkie, or, you know what I mean,
mhm.
loser, or none of that stuff. That's all done.
Even the word alcoholic. I mean, sometimes it's kind of a Debbie Downer. Yeah, you can be an alcoholic, but yeah, you're an athlete. You're trying to
Yeah,
train
yeah.
yourself to get out of this or better.
Yeah, yeah. And so some of the work that we do with our athletes is we do that. We talk about closing those doors.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Because working in this field for as long as I have now, a lot of times I know, like, yeah, we have slips, there's relapses and stuff, but to me, I always, there's a door that we left open somewhere. You know what I mean? So it's about, let's go back and see where we left the door open that said it was okay that if this situation happened or this feeling happened, I'm allowed to drink. And it might not even be totally right in your face conscious that you're like, but sometimes it is. And if we're really rigorously honest, we usually know when we have some back doors open, you know.
What was it? And again, if you're okay to talk about this, is what led your daughter to end up where she ended up?
You know,
Was it trauma that she in her own life? Yeah,
yeah,
like most
yeah,
people. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and then she was, she felt socially awkward. And
Mhm.
I didn't even know that as her mom, um, that she was feeling, just that those social pressures at school to fit in, to be pretty,
Yeah.
to be liked, to
Yeah.
be accepted, you
That's a big
know,
one. Acceptance.
yeah, it's huge.
Hmm.
And just, the jostling, how kids and teenagers, just that jostling that they do, they're all trying to find their way, and and a lot of times they don't even know how to navigate that in a healthy way,
No.
and so there was some of that stuff going on for her. And then, just like how it is with, how we would say that, oh, that's just regular teenage experimenting, you know what I mean? She tried marijuana and she was like, wow, I feel better. I don't feel so awkward. I don't feel so insecure. I don't feel so like, yeah, like
Hmm.
socially awkward and unacceptable. You know what I mean? So it sort of, it fixed it. So why not do it again? And it kind of, and then it just sort of progressed
That's
from
great.
there. And then she had a really horrible experience happen at a party. And then it just flipped a switch and her drug use just took off from there. Yeah. And honestly, Eden would even tell you herself, like, if you were to ask her, oh, well, like, did you know you were going to do fentanyl? Did you know you were going to cross?
No, nobody.
She would have said, no way in hell. She would have been like, there's no
Nobody.
way I'll ever get that back. There's no way I would ever do that or that or that. But then it's progressive, right? The lines get crossed, lines get blurred, stuff happens,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For the listeners, you have a book out. What made you say,
Yeah.
I'm going to create a book and become an author and share a story? And, I've started looking into it, and it's a pretty remarkable book, I must say. Holy smokes.
Oh, Zach, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for putting it out there and being vulnerable, because that's not easy.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It took me almost 5 years to write that book because I had to take breaks from myself.
Was there parts in it where, when you're writing this, you're like, okay, never mind? Because 5 years is a time period where you're saying, actually, you know what? I'm not going to do this book. I don't want to share this. Or I do, I don't.
Yeah, no, once honestly, like for years, I had people telling me, you should write a book. You should write a book. Have you ever thought of writing a book, Vanisha? Oh, Vanisha, you should write a book. And it took a long time for me to believe that I could write a book and I really should do it. And then once I finally kind of made that leap or that decision that, okay, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna do it. And I sat down and, started to write the book. Then there was just no going back, but it did take a long time. And I had, again, some significant, divine pivotal moments of just people really, believing in me and just pushing me to get to the finish line. It's like a freaking marathon, you know what I mean? Where you hit those walls, those mental walls. And then I just, I had some cheers, that were just like, keep going, Vanisha, keep going. And it helped me get it over to the end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What has been some of the feedback that you've received from the book? Or what about this? The feedback to yourself. What is that?
Well, writing the books totally set me free. It was incredibly healing. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things I'm probably most proud of. And then just the feedback, the reviews, the private messages I've received from people have it's been just like all worth it. All the just knowing that the story has the power and the ability to help another person, help someone else to know that they're not alone, that it's powerful. I'm just blown away. A lot of these reviews, I see them, I read them, I just cry, just break down crying because I'm so I sometimes still can't even believe what I'm reading. I can't even believe what I'm reading, someone's review, and how much my book, my story impacted their life or transformed their life or let them know that they weren't alone, or this is what I needed to get through. I finally feel seen. You know what I mean? It's just wow, mm-hmm. wow.
Being vulnerable is scary. Being vulnerable is scary. Were you afraid that people were going to judge you, or how did you get over that hump?
Well, that's where my that's where my people came in, right? Because I was freaking terrified out of my mind.
Yeah, this is your life story. This is a part of your life story.
It was it was scary as hell. So the first few people I gave the book to before it was published live, you know, I was just like sick, just waiting for that feedback. Because I honestly, Zach, like even when I first started writing, I didn't even know if I was even am I even a writer? Like,
Yeah.
can I even, am I even writing? Like, is this what a book is supposed to
Yeah.
even look like? You know, and then to even get that feedback and just like, you know, like, wow, I couldn't even put it down, Vanisha. I read it in one sitting, or I've never read a whole book in my life, and I just read your whole book. And, you know, and just having the people that are my people just be like, you know, crying on the other end of the phone and just so proud of me, and just like so, you know, honored, like to
Of
be
course.
in my life. Like it just was, it's unbelievable. Yeah. Yeah.
In the next year or two, where do you hope the Terminator Foundation is?
National. Yeah. Totally national. We started going national last year.
Nice.
And I hope we are like really have some of the some chapters in different places across Canada. Yeah, absolutely.
No,
Yeah.
for sure. In regards to prevention, though, just before I know we got to get going here, but in
Yeah.
regards to prevention, you know, you go to school and they'll say, "Don't do drugs, kids." No shit, we know that. Just like when you
Yeah.
said Eden, you know, did she know she was going to do that? No, nobody knows, right?
Yeah.
So, what are ways that the Terminator Foundation is looking at finding tactics of prevention?
So, you know how the Terry Fox run, right? Is in all the schools across Canada.
Hmm.
Well, I want to get the Terminator run for youth addiction awareness in all the schools across Canada. I want to implement our 12-week program. As a, you know, how we have basketball, volleyball, like you know what I mean, and things. I would like to see that as a form of prevention intervention
Hmm.
for, you know, our ages 12 up to 18, right? Have two separate programs in the schools, you know, turn it into sort of like an addiction mental health
Right.
awareness week along with the run, where we can have, you know, professionals and experts and things, and we can look at ways of educating our parents and stuff like that, even offering support to the teachers around this, because they're in over their heads with this stuff. You know what I mean? Like I've heard from teachers and stuff what they're dealing with when it comes to addiction and mental health, and it's like they're they're drowning. Our families are drowning. Our teachers are drowning. Like we seriously need to get, you know, into the schools. And because even in all my years of dealing with this and working in this area, pretty much I'd say 95% of people that we work with
Hmm.
that are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, when did you first start using? Well, I was 13, I was 14, I was 15. What are we doing? Right? We need to be educating earlier, and we need to be offering supports to families earlier. Like,
No.
yeah,
Is there a stigma still?
absolutely. Absolutely. That's the other thing that Terminator is terminating, is that stigma. Yeah, as
Yeah, no.
cheesy as that is. Yeah.
It's true though. Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
No. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time today, Venetia. I appreciate it.
Oh, Zach, thank you so much.